Hey, what's going on YouTube? Today I'm going to be going over my cast on crit Meteor strike build that I want to shout out Dreadful for the idea. He's the one who at least I learned the idea from. And this is a character found build, so it's not entirely like min-maxed or perfect. So it's something that a lot of general players can make. It's definitely not hard to farm for some of this gear, and it is definitely attainable for the average player. So I'm just going to quickly go over the gear and explain to you how the build works. So for the gear, mainly we want Peak of the Mountain for a lot of extra crit chance because this is a cast on crit skill. And then of course we want Harbinger of the Stars. Harbinger of the Stars is the pinnacle of the build, is the way the build functions. It's so that we can cast Meteor on crit if above 0 mana. And then we want Dragorath's Claw, which is going to grant us Lightning Blast on crit with Frost Claw to give us extra hits so that we can trigger Harbinger of the Stars more often. And then for our rings, we want some health regen, and I'll go over why we want health regen in a little bit, and then some extra int and armor. Pharaoh's Persistence is a great filler item, or like the ring that you probably should be using. It grants us basically everything we want, but if you find better rings or rings similar to it, you can use that instead and focus on just getting like health regen, some int, maybe max mana, and some extra resistance of some kind. And then we have our Catalyst, which is, it's important that it's a Crystal Skull so that we get that extra base spell crit chance. And then mainly we want the crit multi and the spell damage. Of course, the spell damage could be like more crit chance as well. And then ward per second and cold res, or any res really. Fill out your resistances however you need to. And then for the amulet, we're just mainly looking for increased area for area skills with chance to shred armor on hit. And then the other two mods, I have increased spell damage. It should be increased critical strike chance. Eventually, you don't want to be running Peak of the Mountain. You want to swap off of Peak of the Mountain. So you want to get crit chance wherever you can. And obviously, plus 27 health isn't doing much for this build. It should actually be health regen or something else. And then for the gloves, we're just getting increased area for area skills. With Ellie res, armor, melee attack speed. These gloves are definitely not best in slot. We should have gloves that have some extra int and some more health regen, as well as applying frailty would be probably our best option. And then for the boots, we have increased armor, increased movement speed, and intelligence. Eventually, when we swap relics, we want to have the increased armor become increased health regen instead. For the relic, I'm using Soulfire as my replacement or my budget version. And then eventually you're going to want to swap this relic with Vessel of Strife. And Vessel of Strife is going to give us a ton of added defenses because it's going to give us ward regen. And it gives us ward regen based on our health regen. So 66% of health regen also applies to ward. So we eventually do want to swap to Vessel of Strife, but Soulfire is a great replacement item while trying to farm it. Because currently the only way to farm Vessel of Strife is by killing tier 4 Temporal Sanctum. So it is a very hard item to farm for. It's gated behind a very difficult boss fight. So eventually you do want Vessel of Strife if you can farm for it. And then for the idols, we're just getting some mana spent gained as ward with some extra area for elemental area skills and ward per second, some poison res, some vitality, some health regen, chance to ward when we get hit, and then Throne of Ambition, which is target farmable. All you have to do is farm the Stolen Lance monolith, and that is pretty attainable. You can farm the level 62 version, and eventually you kill the boss enough times, the quest boss, he'll drop Throne of Ambition. And Throne of Ambition is great for single target damage. And this is what our stat page currently looks like. At the moment, my crit chance obviously is not capped. It's very hard to crit cap, I've noticed, in this game. So we have 62% crit chance, but that's not including the fact that some of our skills have added modifiers to our crit that warp it in certain ways. And then we have spell crit is 101%. So our spell crit is 100% hit critting. For our skills, we are leveling Frost Claw, and you can see we don't have it on our bar, and that's because we're getting Frost Claw cast on melee attack. So we're using Mana Strike as our main melee attack, and then Frost Claw triggers off of that. And then for Flame Ward, we're just getting added defenses through Flame Ward and some mana efficiency and duration to help with that. For our Mana Strike, we're mainly just going for things that are going to grant us extra mana gained on hit or on crit. Mana Strike's very important for the build as it's going to keep us above that 0 mana threshold so that we can keep casting Meteor. And then of course we're leveling Meteor. Now for Meteor we're focusing on getting Craterborn and some extra AoE and then a lot of single target damage. And then, of course, we're going to want Meteor Shower so that we can get extra meteors because it is extremely powerful. And then we have Enchant Weapon, which is mainly granting us a ton of extra attack speed and giving us Conduit so that we can trigger zaps and hits more often so that we can hit as many things as many times as possible. For our passives, it's pretty straightforward. We're just going for some extra ward and some attack speed in our main tree. And then for Spellblade, we're just, again, getting some extra melee attack speed and some extra defenses, as well as a little bit of extra elemental damage so that we can path over there. And then we have Rune Master. We're getting just Sphere of Protection from Rune Master because it's a great defensive layer. And then for the Sorcerer tree, we're just focusing on getting crit chance and some extra spell damage. Of course, this build, you're gonna want to have at least 200 maximum mana to take advantage of the Archmage ability. I do not have 200 extra mana yet, but I will have 200 extra mana once I swap Soulfire to Vessel of Strife. But you can also get max mana on, say, a ring or an amulet or a helmet or what have you. Again, the gear is quite moldable. The only things that you definitely need is to have a good crit chance with Dragorath's Claw and Harbinger of Stars. That's like the main functioning aspect of the build. That's how the build kind of performs and works, right? On our skill bar, we have Snap Freeze, Flame Ward, Enchant Weapon, Teleport, and Mana Strike. We are not hard casting Meteor ever, and we are not hard casting Frostclaw ever. So we don't need to put those on our tree. Instead, we can put Teleport on, and then we can use Snap Freeze as an extra way to defensively fight, I guess. Single targets mainly. So I'm going to quickly blast through an Echo and show you how the clearing works on this build. And then I will cut to a boss fight, and I will show you how the boss fights work. You'll notice the single target in particular is not as powerful as the clear, mainly because the more bodies in the area means you have a higher chance of casting meteors. So it's definitely better at clearing than it is at single targets. So as you can see, sometimes it takes a few hits to get the meteor shower to trigger, but it is pretty effective. And also, like, the damage that you're dealing with just your Frostclaw is also pretty effective. So it's not like you have to fully rely on Meteor, but Meteor obviously is like your main damage source. It's what's going to get the clear happening, right? And you can see I'm getting up to like 2,000, 3,000 ward, and I don't even have Vessel of Strife yet. So defensively, it's pretty solid. I'm in a 100 corruption or so, level 100 monolith, so it is doing harder content for what I would consider a pretty low end build. It doesn't have like anything insanely rare or something with like 100 million legendary potential. Like it's very much a build that anyone can probably make, I guess. So we'll just go and slay the Covenant of Dominion, which is that flying lantern looking guy, if I recall. It's basically one of these guys, just larger. Yep, there he is. Now you can see once the meteor goes, like, the guys just fall to their knees. They're very easy to kill. But it does sometimes take a second, as you can see, to get something to trigger. Sometimes it takes a second. And you can see I can crit like 50 times and still just like never roll a meteor. So you do have to pay attention to like understanding the fact that sometimes the build has delays and it can be a little annoying when it delays like that. Okay, so I'm going to cut now to a boss fight, and I will see you in a second. All right, I am back with Oribus as our boss of choice. So something you're going to notice is that it takes a second for the damage to ramp up to get the meteors to start triggering, but once they start triggering, it's hard to get them to stop triggering. I'm also taking a lot of hits. Surprised I didn't die to that. And there you go. That's boss fighting. They don't always look like that, but sometimes they can go pretty well. So boss fighting and single target damage is definitely doable on the build. It's just sometimes it takes a second for the meteors to start going, but for the most part, it's pretty solid. Again, I do want to thank Dreadful for the build idea, and I want to go suggest you check out his video. I'll leave a link into the description where he has more of a, I don't want to say min-max because it's not min-maxed, but I want to say a more profound version of the build. So if you are a more experienced player or you have gotten further along the line in your character progression, maybe go check out his build and make his version. His version's definitely a lot more put together than mine. But with that comes, greater expenses, harder to make, especially in character found. But I do want to point out that you should definitely go check out his build if you are interested in pushing the build further than what I have currently. I also want to preface, because this is character found, my build is not fully complete or to any means a finished product. This is just something that I put together that I think other players could put together and might find interest in. So yeah, with that being said, leave a like if you did, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace out.